Lewis Hamilton hit the barriers at Spa, looked at the wrecked Ferrari, and said the 5 words no team ever wants to hear. "I have destroyed the car, mate." The floor was damaged. The rear suspension was damaged. The rear wing was damaged. And Ferrari had roughly 2 hours to rebuild everything before qualifying. But Hamilton's crash did not end with one destroyed car. It triggered double yellow flags, forced Max Verstappen to slow, sent Carlos Sainz into a violent tire lockup, and brought the Williams terrifyingly close to the back of the Red Bull. Then came the investigation. But Hamilton was not the driver under investigation. Verstappen and Sainz were. And somehow, after the crash, the emergency repairs, and the chaos that followed, Hamilton returned to qualify only 0.02 of a second behind Charles Leclerc. The accident looked like the end of his weekend. Instead, it exposed one of Ferrari's most dramatic recoveries of the entire season. Subscribe to the channel. To understand how one mistake created so much chaos, you have to begin with where Hamilton lost control. The exit of the Faines chicane. Turn 13. A section of Spa where the car is already carrying enormous speed, the tires are heavily loaded, and the driver has almost no time to recover once the line begins to disappear. Hamilton ran wide during the final minutes of the 3rd practice session. That timing made the accident far more serious. This was not an early mistake, with the entire day available for repairs. Qualifying was approaching. Ferrari's setup work was almost finished. The engineers were collecting their final information. Hamilton was supposed to be building confidence for the most important laps of the afternoon. Then the Ferrari left the circuit, and within seconds the entire plan collapsed. There was another detail that made the accident even more unsettling. Pierre Gasly had suffered an almost identical crash at the same point during the previous practice session. 2 experienced Formula One drivers. The same corner. A frighteningly similar mistake. That did not automatically mean the circuit was unsafe, but it showed how brutally the exit could punish a car that moved only slightly beyond the ideal line. At normal speed, running wide might mean a correction and a lost second. At Spa, it can mean losing the entire car. The tire touches a surface with less grip. The balance changes. The rear begins to move. The driver reacts. But by the time the correction arrives, the available road may already be gone. Hamilton felt the impact immediately. Then came the radio message. "Yeah, I have destroyed the car, mate." There was no attempt to soften the truth. No long explanation. No excuse. Hamilton knew the damage was serious before Ferrari had even inspected the car. A driver feels that through the steering wheel, through the seat, through the sudden movement of the chassis, through the sound of carbon fiber breaking around him. And Hamilton's words told the garage that this was not going to be a simple repair. The floor was damaged. The rear suspension was damaged. The rear wing was damaged. Another report also identified damage around the right rear wheel. Any one of those problems could have threatened qualifying. Hamilton had damaged several critical areas at once. And this is where Ferrari's emergency truly began. The floor is not simply a flat panel underneath the car. It is one of the main reasons a modern Formula One machine can corner at such extraordinary speed. Air travels underneath the car through carefully shaped channels. That airflow creates pressure that helps pull the car toward the circuit. The driver feels the result as grip. Hidden grip. Grip created beneath the car, where spectators cannot easily see it. Damage the floor, and the balance can change in ways that are difficult to predict. The rear may feel stable in one corner, then move suddenly in another. The car may behave normally at lower speed, then become nervous when the aerodynamic load increases. That uncertainty is dangerous anywhere. At Spa is terrifying. The circuit demands commitment through fast corners. Hamilton could not enter qualifying wondering whether the floor would produce the grip he expected. Ferrari had to inspect the damage, understand how far it had spread, and restore the car to a condition Hamilton could trust. But the floor was only one part of the crisis. The rear suspension controls how the wheel moves under braking, acceleration, and cornering forces. It helps keep the tire connected to the road. If the suspension is damaged or misaligned, the car can become unpredictable. Think of pushing a shopping cart with one wheel pointing in the wrong direction. At walking speed, it feels annoying. At Formula One speed, even a tiny misalignment can destroy confidence. Ferrari's mechanics could not simply replace the visibly broken part. They had to inspect every connection around it, every joint, every mounting point, every component that may have absorbed the force of the impact. Because crash damage does not always stop where the broken carbon fiber ends. The energy can travel through the suspension and into the surrounding structure. A component can look normal, then fail when the car reaches maximum load. And Hamilton's next meaningful laps would be qualifying laps. There would be no gentle test, no long run at reduced speed, no comfortable opportunity to discover whether something still felt wrong. The car had to be safe immediately. Then there was the rear wing. That wing helps keep the back of a Ferrari stable at high speed. It also influences the car's straight-line performance. The angle, the structure, and the mounting points all have to be correct. Replacing the visible wing was not enough. Ferrari also had to confirm that the impact had not damaged the parts holding it in place. A new wing attached to a compromised structure would solve nothing, so the mechanics were not facing one repair. They were facing a chain of repairs. The floor affected aerodynamic grip. The suspension affected tire contact and stability. The rear wing affected balance at high speed. And every one of those systems had to work together. Ferrari had roughly 2 hours. That sounds manageable until you understand what needed to happen. The car had to be recovered. The damaged parts had to be removed. The mechanics had to clean the affected areas. The engineers had to inspect for hidden damage. Replacement components had to be prepared. The floor had to be fitted. The suspension had to be rebuilt. The rear wing had to be installed. The alignment had to be checked. Every system had to be tested. Then the entire car had to pass Ferrari's internal safety inspections. And every job depended on the previous one being completed correctly. The team could not finish the alignment before rebuilding the suspension. It could not fit the final aerodynamic pieces before confirming the mounting points were secure. It could not send Hamilton onto the circuit while any uncertainty remained. This was not a race to make the car look repaired. It was a race to make the Ferrari capable of surviving maximum attack at one of the fastest circuits in Formula One. That difference is enormous. The mechanics needed urgency. They could not allow panic. Working quickly could save qualifying. Working carelessly could create another accident. Every bolt mattered. Every measurement mattered. Every inspection mattered. The clock continued moving. The standard could not change. And Hamilton could do almost nothing. That may have been the hardest part for him. The mistake was his. The consequences belonged to the entire team. He could not replace the floor. He could not rebuild the suspension. He could not repair the rear wing. He could only wait while the mechanics fought to save his afternoon. And waiting after a mistake creates its own pressure. Hamilton knew why the garage was in crisis. He knew Ferrari's normal preparation had been destroyed. He knew every mechanic was now working against the clock because of what had happened at Sainz. And even if the repairs were completed, he would still have to return to the same circuit that had just punished him. There would be no slow return to confidence. Qualifying demands commitment almost immediately. The tires need the correct temperature. The battery has to be prepared. Traffic must be managed. The braking zones must be attacked. The fast corners demand trust. Hamilton had to understand the crash without allowing it to control the next lap. Ignore the mistake completely, and he could repeat it. Think about it too much, and hesitation would appear. Hesitation changes the braking point. It changes the steering input. It changes the throttle application. And in qualifying, hesitation becomes lap time. The best drivers do not simply forget a crash. They process it. They identify what happened. They decide what must change. Then they return to the limit. Hamilton would need to do all of that before Ferrari even knew whether the car could leave the garage. But the accident was already creating another danger beyond the Ferrari garage. Debris had been left on the circuit. Marshals needed protection while clearing it. Double yellow flags were shown. That warning means danger ahead. Slow significantly. Be prepared to stop. Max Verstappen approached the area and reduced his speed. Carlos Sainz was directly behind him. Then the situation changed in an instant. Sainz was surprised by the Red Bull slowing ahead. He hit the brakes. The tires locked severely, and the Williams came frighteningly close to the back of Verstappen's car. Hamilton's solo crash had nearly created a second accident, this time between two moving cars. Verstappen reacted immediately over the radio. "What the fuck? My God. It's like double yellows, and this car, it almost crashes in the back of me. Unbelievable." His anger came from the shock. He had slowed because the double yellow flags required him to slow. From inside the Red Bull, Sainz had suddenly arrived far too close. The safety procedure designed to protect marshals had almost ended with Verstappen being hit from behind. Sainz saw the moment differently. The car in front braked quite sudden. That one sentence revealed the entire misunderstanding. Verstappen believed he had slowed normally under double yellow flags. Sainz believed the Red Bull had reduced speed more sharply than expected. Both drivers were responding to the same danger, yet their separate reactions almost created another one. And this is where Hamilton's crash became much larger than one damaged Ferrari. The original accident had already ended. Hamilton's car had stopped, but the consequences were still moving through the circuit. The debris created the warning. The warning forced Verstappen to slow. Sainz reacted behind him. The tires locked. The gap disappeared. And suddenly, the stewards had another incident to examine. Hamilton was not placed under investigation for the crash. A solo mistake during practice does not normally produce a personal sporting penalty. The investigation focused on Verstappen and Sainz. Officials needed to determine whether either driver had failed to reduce speed sufficiently under the double yellow flags. Representatives from Red Bull and Williams were summoned as well. The hearing was scheduled for 2:25 in the afternoon, local time. One mistake at turn 13 had now created pressure in 3 different places. Ferrari was rebuilding Hamilton's car. Red Bull was preparing to explain Verstappen's actions. Williams was preparing to explain Sainz's response. And the most important detail was still hidden. The investigation was real. The danger was real. But the stewards would eventually decide that neither Verstappen nor Sainz had broken the rules. No penalty for Verstappen. No penalty for Sainz. The officials described the moment as a misunderstanding, with both drivers judged to have complied with the regulations. That verdict removed the punishment. It did not remove the fear. Sainz had still locked his tires heavily. Verstappen had still believed he was about to be hit from behind. And all of it happened under a warning designed to make the circuit safer. That is what made the incident so unsettling. Nobody needed to break the rules for the danger to appear. Both drivers could act within the regulations. The near collision could still happen. And while the stewards examined that chain reaction, Ferrari's mechanics were still trying to answer the question Hamilton had created with 5 words. Had he really destroyed the car beyond repair? Or could Ferrari rebuild it quickly enough for him to fight in qualifying? The answer would not come from the garage. It would come from the stopwatch.